Hi everybody. Sitting beside me is the 2020 Toyota RAV4 TRD Off-Road. Now I know what you might already be thinking. RAV4 and off-road, those don't belong in the same sentence. Don't forget though that competitors for this vehicle come from brands like Jeep and Subaru. So in this video, I'm gonna break down all of the features that go into this TRD off-road package. We'll talk about the redesigned RAV4 as a whole, and then we will discuss where this model slots into the world of crossovers in terms of off-road worthiness. Let's start by looking at the RAV4 and talking styling, but first let me clear something up. The model that this TRD Off-Road is based on here in Canada is called the RAV4 Trail. Now in the United States, the exact same model is called the RAV4 Adventure. I don't know why these decisions get made. Someone at Toyota Canada obviously thought Canadians would prefer a trail model over an adventure model. Seems arbitrary to me, but now you know. So this TRD Off-Road is based on the RAV4 Trail, and checking both of those option boxes means that you're gonna get all of the plastic cladding that you see here. Toyota calls it mud guards. You're getting that unique grille up front. You're getting fog lights and fog light surrounds, and then of course you're getting a TRD Off-Road badge. Also part of the TRD Off-Road package are these 18-inch wheels and a set of Falken Wild Peak all-terrain tires. Honestly, these tires are the most important off-road upgrade on this thing, but more on that in a moment. In general, the redesigned RAV4 has a new long and low look to it, and I do quite like it. Easily my favorite styling cue here though is this ice edge white roof that calls back to those famous FJ40s from the past. The only engine you can get with your RAV4 TRD Off-Road is a 2.5 liter inline 4-cylinder that makes 184 horsepower and 203 pound-feet of torque. Luckily, it's not hooked up to a CVT. This is paired to an 8-speed automatic. That means that this model is good for 25 miles per gallon in the city, 32 on the highway for a combined 27 miles per gallon according to the US EPA. Now you know what powers it, let's talk about how it drives. Okay, let's feel the power, taking off from a stop sign in sport mode, foot to the floor. Okay, not too bad. There is definitely some torque steer here because don't forget this RAV4 is front wheel drive based. Now the engine, kind of unrefined, doesn't really sound that great either to be honest. The transmission though is doing a really nice job. The 8-speed has smooth shifts, it shifts quickly, and that's really helping you to get into that power band. Let's look at the off-road upgrades now. So this vehicle has 8.6 inches of ground clearance, which is not a lot, and it's unfortunate because that's the exact same amount as the regular RAV4. There is no lift here. There is, though, TRD tuned suspension. That's gonna not beat you up quite as much off-road. And then, of course, the most meaningful upgrade, this set of Falken Wild Peak all-terrains. So far, I've been impressed with how they've done on-road. They're quite quiet, and you don't really notice them. Now the other system that's going to work for you off-road here is the torque vectoring all-wheel drive, and to see how that works, let's head inside. First of all, stepping inside this RAV4, this interior is actually quite nice. Now this TRD off-road model gets unique floor mats. You get some sill plates right there, although these are actually available on the trail and adventure models. You get that same kind of motif, little mountains in the backs of your seats there too. And then you also get it, and this is pretty cool, when you start up the vehicle. Now on this dial, if you go left, you go into mud and sand mode, and you'll see that not only does it say mud and sand, but it'll actually show you which one of your wheels is slipping with those little gauges there. Now traction control gets turned off, and so does forward collision warning. And traction control off is important because in mud and sand you want high wheel speeds. Now turn it over here and we have rock and dirt, and you'll notice that traction gets turned back on. I'm sure it's modified, but in rock and dirt, you don't always want crazy high wheel speeds, so that is what this Toyota is going to try and deliver. And then when you're done off-road, simply push in the middle, boom, and you're back to normal mode. Now let's talk a little bit more about how this all-wheel drive system works. Torque vectoring is a really important part of this all-wheel drive system. So the RAV4 here can send up to 50% of its power to the rear axle, and then it can split the power from left to right. It also uses a brake-based traction control system. There are no lockers here, but if slip is detected, the vehicle will brake the slipping wheel and help to send power to the wheel that still has traction. Now, another thing that's important to note about this system is the entire rear axle is actually disconnectable. So for fuel economy's sake, when you're just cruising like I am right now, this is essentially a front wheel drive vehicle. And then when you either put it into one of these drive modes, or of course, if the vehicle senses slip, it will then reconnect and send power to the back. Let's continue looking around this RAV4, and first of all, let's take a peek in the back seat. So I have my big convertible car seat installed right there, and it's important to note that in this RAV4 you have 37.8 inches of rear seat legroom. Now, I personally could not sit in that front seat and be comfortable with this child seat back here. You do have to move it up quite a ways to accommodate a seat that's this big. And the other more important factor is that the Honda CR-V offers 40 inches of rear seat legroom. And yes, in this situation, that 2 extra inches will really help. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Now, for amenities, the RAV4 does offer 2 USB ports down there, which is great, and also some vents for your rear seat passengers. I like that a lot. You also get this little mountain motif still continuing on your sill plates and down there on your floor mats. Now, moving to the rear, on our TRD off-road model, we do have a powered tailgate. And back here, you also get this big, thick TRD off-road rubber floor mat. Rubber floor mats are very important for this model because this is the kind of person who wants to go camping, kayaking on the weekend, something like that, leading an active lifestyle, and being able to easily clean out your vehicle is important. Now, I love this little storage cubby, but more importantly than that, I really like this 120 volt plug in the back end of this RAV4. So when you are out on the trail, you can plug your stuff in. Another few notes on the interior. I really like these rubber covered HVAC knobs and volume control knob used on the infotainment system. Even the grab handles on the door, the back side of them have this rubber coating. So all of the materials in here just feel really, really good. And then the red stitching looks cool. I do actually like the little red accents around your cup holders and down there around the cell phone wireless charger. Overall, I think the whole interior of the RAV4 is nice, and then if you go for this TRD off-road model, it's different enough and it looks pretty cool. Now it's time to talk competition, and don't forget that this RAV4 is the best-selling compact crossover, so it has a lot of pressure on it to keep those sales up. Now this thing competes with the Mazda CX-5, Chevrolet Equinox, GMC Terrain, Honda CR-V, Hyundai Tucson, the Nissan Rogue, the Volkswagen Tiguan, the Hyundai Santa Fe, and then of course the two main competitors are the Subaru Forester and the Jeep Cherokee. All of these models do offer some type of all-wheel drive, but I think it's safe to say that the Forester and the Cherokee are the only two others on this list that really make off-roading a priority. So how do these three models stack up? Well, I think honestly right off the bat we can say the Jeep Cherokee is the most off-road worthy compact crossover. It has the most ground clearance, the most protection, and a real locker in the rear end. I don't think there's much argument there. The real question becomes, should you get this RAV4 TRD off-road or a Subaru Forester? Now, the Subaru Forester only offers 8.7 inches of ground clearance, so just 0.1 inches more. It's not a huge difference. Of course, Subaru has its symmetrical all-wheel drive. I think the true difference between those two models is going to be price. This RAV4 TRD off-road here in Canada stickers for about $42,000. It's not inexpensive. Whereas the Subaru Forester, if you go for something like the Sport model, that's the most closely comparable to this TRD off-road, you're gonna be spending just over $35,000. And keep in mind that every single Forester has all-wheel drive, whereas in the base models, this RAV4 is just front-wheel drive. So how do we rank them in terms of straight up off-road worthiness? Well, you know what, guys? This RAV4 TRD off-road gets better tires right out of the gate than the Subaru, and that's why I'm giving it the #2 spot right behind that Cherokee. After looking at all that information, I personally still don't really think Toyota should have used the TRD off-road badge on this model. On the Tacoma, Tundra, 4Runner, that badge really brings along a lot of capability. Here on the RAV4, not so much. But when you look at it through the lens of the competition, it turns out that this is actually one of the most off-road capable compact crossovers you can buy straight out of the gate. Now, don't expect to go rock crawling in Moab, but if you want to commute all week and then hit the campsite, go kayaking or ride some bikes on the weekend, this is exactly the vehicle for you. So guys, that's it for this one. Make sure you go below, leave a comment, hit like, hit subscribe, and then come right back to the channel because I'm taking this thing off-road really soon and we'll do a proper off-road shakedown. Now, like I said, come right back here to TFL Off-Road for the latest news, views, and real-world reviews. See ya.